Hello and welcome to the show. It's a book review, Sontag, Her Life and Work, Biography of Susan Sontag. The show today is brought to you thanks to the Structure Success video training, which is a free training that helps you come up with a rough outline for your own life story. And I'll have more details about this at the end of the show, so please stay with me. Now, if you are new to Forever Young Autobiographies, it's the place where we learn to write life stories for family and friends, so unique memories can live on. And it'd be terrific if you could follow, subscribe and like the show. So Sontag, Her Life and Work is written by Benjamin Moser, and it is a definitive biography of a genius. Now, the book came out in 2019 under Eco, which is publishes by HarperCollins, and it is a portrait of one of the 20th century's best American writers. Essentially, it's a story of a girl from the suburbs who becomes an intellectual force. So Moser was well equipped to write this book, and he's written what some have called a landmark biography. And indeed, it's picked up a slew of awards, including last year a Pulitzer Prize. So in this show, I'm going to tell you a little bit more about this book, what you can find interesting to readers, and what we can take away as life story writers. So the book starts, obviously, when Sontag is young, and we hear the story of her parents. So her parents live and work for a time in China, which is where Sontag spent some of her early childhood. Unfortunately, Sontag's father dies quite young from tuberculosis, and her mother moves her and her sister back to America. Now, her mother is suffering from alcoholism, and this impacts Sontag in her upbringing, and she develops a real love for books. She is a prolific reader. In fact, she outreads many of her teachers and her professors. So she ends up going to university at age 16, and it's at this time that she discovers her independence and her sexual freedom. She meets a fellow intellectual, Philip Reef, and they get married when she's 17. And a couple of years later, they have a son, David. Now, they're married for a time, but Sontag does feel the pressure to conform to this 1950s version of a wife, and in the end she splits and takes her son and lives in New York City, where she becomes a writer and an activist, and she has this life full of fame, of lovers and health incidents. So what can we find interesting in this book as readers? Well, there's quite a few things. Firstly, I would probably bring up the fact that the bulk of the book, Freud, The Mind of the Moralist, which is written by Sontag's husband, but she did do a lot, perhaps many would say the bulk of this rewriting of this book, but in fact her name is not associated with the book when it was published. So that was quite interesting. She essentially wrote this book but didn't get any credit for it. Another interesting point was that she went to Sarajevo when it was in a war situation, and she put on a play. So completely put her life at risk to do this, but she brought not art but humanity to the local population. So that was incredibly interesting. But probably the most interesting thing of all of this book is we learn about Sontag's formidable intellect. And we see this through her works. She's written many essays, books, she's done plays, she's done films, she's done her other reviews. And, you know, it really is on show here. She challenges different thoughts and she reshapes conventions. So really, really worthwhile to read this book for just those points alone. So what can we take away as life story writers? Firstly, I think, is the power of journals. Sontag had reportedly 100 journals, and Moser had access to her archive, and he was able to detail and show her genius, her private thoughts and her struggles having access to these journals and all the details they contained. Another great lesson that we can learn from this book is how to detail a character in a holistic way. So Moser does really show Susan's good sides and her weaknesses, her flaws. For example, when she is in this war-torn Sarajevo putting on plays in other dire situations or emergency situations, she can be incredibly compassionate. But then in day-to-day life, she unknowingly can be quite rude and abrupt to people that she loves. So it really shows the holistic nature of a character. But perhaps the most important lesson we can learn from this book is from Susan herself, in that she clearly demonstrates or clearly explains, especially through her journal entries, that she doubts her abilities and she doubts her writing is good enough. And I think that is a really great takeaway for us as life story writers, because even the best of the best, like Sontag, is doubting that. And we all have these thoughts, and I think it reinforces that it's completely normal. It's very, very natural. So there you have it. That's a summary of Sontag, her life and work by Benjamin Moser, and it picked up a Pulitzer Prize, so a really good one for you to read. I hope that you will get some inspiration from this show and that you will want to write really great, unforgettable stories like Sontag. If you would like to know more about this article, this review, head over to my website, foreveryoungautobiographies.com/Sontag, and you can find it all there, plus some resources and some other links to some other books that you might be interested in reading. While you're there, leave me a comment. Have you got a book recommendation for me? I'd love to know. And if you've got any questions about life story writing, please leave me a comment or an email at foreveryoungautobiographies.com/contact. At the top of the show, I mentioned the Structure Success video training, and this is where I go through some key exercises with you to map out events and memories of your life, and then we organise them into a chapter outline. To get this, you need to go to foreveryoungautobiographies.com/structure success sign up, and I will have all the links for you in the show notes. So please check those out. I'll be back again soon with another topic, so it'd be terrific if you could follow, subscribe, like the show, and until then, happy reading and happy writing.